he got Michael Barkann.
Get
And I
out
said,
of here.
I don't know. I said, I don't know him personally. I said, Steven does all his own. Steven does all his own recruiting. You ready, Steve?
Unbelievable. Well,
He's got fans all over the country. Are you ready?
Super. I'm ready, man.
All right.
Ready to go.
Here we are live on Facebook with another episode of Talking Sports with the Legend. Tonight's guest is Michael Barkann. Take it away, Steve.
Where are you from?
Well, first of all, are you sure you're talking to me? Your dad said legend. I think you must be talking about somebody else, Steve. Come on.
No,
I think
Steve
you're talking about you.
He's the legend. Yeah, he's the legend. That's his nickname.
The legend, Steve. I know. I saw it on the email.
Yeah.
Steve the legend, McGarry Jr. That what? That would be a great name for like a series. Tonight on McGarry. I think.
All right, from your lips to the TV people's ears.
I am from East Brunswick, New Jersey, Middlesex County. It's north of Trenton, New Jersey. I would say it's probably from Philadelphia. It's probably an hour and 20 minutes north. It's near New Brunswick, near Rutgers University. It's probably 45 minutes from Manhattan with no traffic from New York City. So that's where I grew up. I was a member of the Fighting Bears of East Brunswick High School. It was a 3-year high school, actually, at that time. Now it's 4 years, but it was 3 years. We were sophomore, junior, senior year, and graduated with 720 kids, and I was tops in my class. Not okay. So that's where I'm from, East Brumfis, as we say, Holly Rock.
Did you play any sports as a kid?
I played the toughest sport there is, Steve. I played cross country, and never let anybody tell you any different. Cross country, 3-mile course. You're running up hill and dale. You're going through the woods. You got to have the stamina. You could turn your ankle on a twig or a branch. It's not like a sissy sport like football. Cross country is a tough sport. And I ran cross country all 3 years. I ran track as well, winter track, spring track, and that was my sports experience. Played a little basketball too, very little. They wouldn't let me play much.
Where did you go to college?
Right here. See that right there? Syracuse University, the Syracuse Orange. And I'm sure you've heard of Jim Brown and Ernie Davis and Floyd Little, who we just lost. He passed away last week after a long battle with cancer. And Bigfoot Art Monk, Joe Morris, and Jerry Feary. And Jerry Feary is from Delaware County, and he went to Syracuse, and he was the center on the Philadelphia Eagles. And we were at school together, didn't know each other then. And then I graduated and eventually made my way to Channel 3, and then he was the center for the Eagles. So he and I always had that little bond.
What other jobs did you have before working for Comcast Sportsnet?
Steve, these are great questions, man. I'm loving these questions. Let's see. My first job, I think, was at Pat's Pizza in Harvey Cedars on Long Beach Island. And it was a little pizza joint on Long Beach Boulevard in Harvey Cedars. And I was, in those days, I was the dishwasher for Pat's Pizza. And I don't know, I was probably like 13 years old, 14 years old. And Steve, I wore rubber gloves to protect myself from the water, because my hands were in water all night long scrubbing those dishes. Well, I didn't just put those dishes in a dishwasher machine, Steve. I actually washed the gosh darn dishes myself. So my mom, of course, she's like, I think you should wear rubber gloves. I'm like, no, Mom, I'll be laughed out of that place. So, but I thought, you know what? I also didn't want my hands to get like shriveled and have the bone sticking through. So I wore the gloves. And then, throughout the night, whether it was an end of a knife or a fork, the gloves would get holes poked in them. And pretty soon I had water in the gloves, and I had them rubber banded like right here. And so it turned out to be a mess. But yeah, that was my first job, Pat's Pizza. And then I was also at the quarterdeck. And then finally, when I was in college at Syracuse, I worked at a radio station, which is still there, I think, WJRZ, Jersey Shore Broadcasting, 100.1 FM. And I did the news for them between my sophomore and junior year, my second and third year at Syracuse. And then I was off and running with kind of like the type of job that I thought I was going to be doing after I graduated school. Oh, wait. One more, Steve. Hang on. I also worked at the donut den, Steve, filling donuts. I swear. And I would get up at the crack of dawn, and I would go and I would you know how donuts are made, at least they were made in those days. They were actually like put in a vat, like a big huge bowl of hot oil, like frying oil, and then you'd have like what looked like a wooden, like a drumstick, and you turn them over just like you were turning over a burger or whatever, floating in the oil, and then you put sugar on them, and then they had this machine that looked kind of like this, where it had a point to it, and you put the donut on the end of the machine, and then you know, either apple jelly or grape jelly or cream would come out, and that would be it. I did that. It was a fun one too. I'm sure I'll think of a dozen more jobs, Steve, before we're done. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
How about after college? What year did you graduate college?
82.
And then you started working for NBC right away?
Oh yeah, first job. That's another great. Wait, Steve, your lips weren't moving. What happened? Who was that? It's amazing. here's the. By the way, I love your Phillies cap, Steve. That's I got to get that one this year. You're welcome. I my first job out of college was at NBC News in Washington, D.C. And I went down there. My girlfriend at the time was from D.C., and her mom was a congresswoman, actually, before they stormed the castle. And so she was down there. I'm like, oh, okay. I graduated, and I called up the bureau chief, Scott Goodfellow, at NBC News, and I said, I want to work for you. He said, no, you don't. I said, yeah, honest to goodness, let me come down and talk to you. I'll blow your doors off. So he thought that was kind of amusing. So he let me come down, and I started doing that. I started stuffing mailboxes. They had all these correspondents, you know, reporters down there, and they had a big mailbox on the wall, and I would stuff the mailboxes with the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal and anything else they needed. And I thought, you know what? And I was a desk assistant. That was my job, called a desk assistant, because you're sitting at the desk and anybody needs anything, you're like a gopher. You go for this, you go for that. And so I did that for a summer, and I thought, hey, I'm going to be the first desk assistant to ever work his way up to be a network correspondent. And then my girlfriend left to take her final year abroad in Europe, and I thought, I'm out of here. So I went back home, back to East Brunswick, and then I got a job at New Jersey Network, which is New Jersey Public Television, and I was essentially doing the same thing as I was at NBC News, except it was more hands-on. So I go out and do stories, and I'd be holding the microphone up, you know, holding the mic and then asking questions of the politicians or sports people. And then I go home and say, see that hand? Mom, Dad, see that hand in the shot? That's my hand. My hand is famous. So go ahead. I'm sorry. Steve, so you just have to tell me to shut up, Steve, because I just ramble on.
What was your major in college?
Broadcast journalism. It's broadcast journalism at Syracuse. And when I talk to young people, Steve, like yourself, I talk about battling against adversity. And that was kind of my first taste of adversity. I brought it upon myself because I had a pretty good time in high school, and my grades were not necessarily what you might say dean's list, Steve. And so when I applied to Syracuse, they let me into arts and sciences, but I applied to the SI Newhouse School of Public Communications at Syracuse University. Did not get in right off the bat. They said, no, we're not going to let you in the Newhouse. We'll let you into the general institution. So I had to settle down and get good grades. And so which I did, and that's where sports comes in too, because I had to register for all my classes. I needed the classes that I need in order to get those classes, get good grades to transfer into Newhouse, and all the athletes. You got to be at practice when you need to be at practice, and because I was running cross country, I got to register for my classes early, so I got all the classes that I needed at Newhouse, got good grades, and transferred in second semester freshman year. So I was in there right off the bat, and which was cool. I forget what your original question was. What was it? What was that question?
He asked you, what was your major?
Yeah. So broadcast journalism was my major. Long way again.
So you took us right. So you went to Washington D.C. and then you went back to Syracuse. And then how did you end up in Philly?
I went back to Jersey. Then I went back home to Jersey.
And how did you get back home to Philly?
Back home to Philly,
get here to Philly,
which I consider Philadelphia my home. I would never say I'm from Philly. I would say I'm from Philly, but you can't if you're not born and raised in Philly. You didn't go to high school in Philly. You can't say you're from Philly.
Right.
I would only the late great Al Meltzer said that. Hello there, and my wife's from Philly, born and raised. She's from Havertown. My children are from Philly, born and raised. Actually, my daughter was born in Boston, and then about a year in, when they started up Comcast Sportsnet, now NBC Sports Philadelphia, when we came back, but she was born in Philly, and my son is born and raised in Philly. So but when I finished up with NBC News, I went back home to East Brunswick, and then worked at New Jersey Network for about 4 years, doing the desk assistant stuff, but I was also reporting and off camera, and I was also writing the weather, Steve, because in that there was no weatherman in the newscast then. So I wrote. We subscribed to a weather service, and I wrote the weathercast for the anchor people to read. And so one day we got a blizzard. It was February 11th, 1984. I mean, blizzard like you would not believe. From Boston all the way down to D.C., the whole Northeast was paralyzed. And so they realized they couldn't have the anchors just read the weather. It was too big a story. They needed a weatherman. And they looked at me, who wrote the weather every single day, and said, "Can you?" And also, dress for the job you want, Steve. So I always came into the office every day with a jacket and tie on, and nice trousers and shoes, and so they weren't expensive. But, I made sure that I was presentable. I also tell kids, you kids out there, dress to be presentable. Whatever you think presentable is, that's how you should dress for whatever job that you want. So I dressed in a jacket and tie or a suit and tie. And so they turned to me, who wrote the weathercast every day as it's blizzarding outside. And they said, "Can you do the weather for us tonight?" Well, I was shaking in my boots, Steve. I mean, you can imagine. So I said, "Sure." I was like, "Oh, sure, I'll do it." And I did the weather. It was the worst thing you've ever seen. It was terrible. And because in the news, like if you watch Hurricane Schwartz or Cecily Tynan or any of the weather people in Philadelphia, weather is the point in the newscast where if it's a big story or they have a lot of time, then the weather person goes long. But if they got a lot of stories and there's not a lot of time, the weather person goes short. They do the same thing to a lesser degree with sports, but it's easy to just, here's the 5-day forecast, slap it up there and everything's good. So I didn't know that. I'd never done weather before. And so I scripted it. And I was looking into the camera like this, Steve, like a deer in headlights reading the weathercast. And it was really, really embarrassing, let me tell you. Then at the end of the show, they put me out in the snow. It was snowing so hard, I had a little hat of snow on my head. And that was a little bit better. I kind of winged it, And my wife shows me that video anytime if I get too big for my britches, or I won't take out the garbage or whatever, fix the faucet, she'll say, "Look, I remember when you used to look like that." So it was very, very, very bad. But then they put weather in the newscast, like on the regular, Steve. So I became the weatherman. And I guess about a year in, we got a new boss, and he fired the number one sports guy. He made the backup sports guy the number one sports guy. And then he came to me, who was doing weather, and he said, "Hey, how'd you like to be the backup sports guy?" And I said, "No, you kidding me? I'm a starter. I'm a starting weatherman. I'm not doing that. You kidding me? No, take a walk." And I went home to my parents. I was living at home. And I said, they offered me the backup sports job. I told them to stick it. I'm the weatherman. What do you think of that? They said, "You're a schmuck. Are you kidding me? All you've ever wanted to do was be a sports guy, and they offer you the opportunity, and you tell them no?" So the next day I went into my boss with my hat in hand, and I said, "Can I change my mind?" He let me. Thank God he let me change my mind. And bingo, I became the backup sports guy at New Jersey Network. And it was only several months later, this was 1987, several months later, that a man by the name of Randy Covington hired me to be the number 3 sports guy at Channel 3 in Philadelphia. Bang. So at only 70 years old, finally got to Philadelphia. No, I'm kidding. I was 26.
Steve, tell them what year you were born.
What year?
87.
No way. 87.
February 13th, 1987.
Mhm.
It snowed that day. It was Friday the 13th. A day I'll never forget.
Friday, February 13th, 1987. That is
Steve's.
unbelievable.
Yes, the day he was born to this earth.
Oh my goodness, how lucky we were, how lucky we are. Let me tell you something, Steve. It's almost 4 years to the day that I made my paid television debut as a weatherman.
See?
Son of a gun. That's awesome. Now I'm going to have to mark that. I'm putting that down. February 13th.
87. That was he throws his own party every year, Mike, but unfortunately he had to cancel the last year because he just got out of the hospital, and we went to spring training. So with the COVID, he was going to have it in March, but then the COVID hit, so he had to cancel his party. He invites all his friends from inner city North Philly, where we grew up, and then some of the people he's met along his journey, and he gets God, like 50, 60 people at the bar. And I said, next time there's no COVID, we're going to have it at a club or an American Legion or something.
Yeah, it's going to be a race. We're going to have 3 parties in a row.
Yeah, we're gonna have a big one for him once this is all done and over with, right, Steve?
Yeah, that's right. But take me to Florida last year.
Yeah, me and my wife took him for spring training. First time all 3 of us ever went there.
Isn't that great?
Yes, it was wonderful. We met Greg Murphy out in left field. We had seats right on the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew Knapp came over. I work at an auto tag store in South Philadelphia. The guy that I was telling you before we went on air, Joe Conklin's friend, and I worked for him. And he came in one day with his wife to register his car, and then I said, "I need your license and insurance and your title." So he hands me the title, and I'm like, "Andrew Knapp." I was like, "Oh!" I came out. I'm behind glass, so I came out of my little jail cell, and went around, shook his hand, and then he remembered me. We went down there, and I took my hat off, and I said, "Hey, this is my son Steven I told you about." And he's like, "Oh, great, to meet you." He took a picture with me, him, and it was great.
And one other guy, Kendall Simmons.
Yeah, Steven can't get over this story. It was a guy named Kendall Simmons. So we were in the Murph told the guys to let us down in the area where the picnic area is there. So we were standing there, and the players were coming out, and a lot of the big guys walked right by us. So this guy comes over, and he was really nice. And Steven said, "Can I get your autograph?" And then my wife says, "Can we get a picture with you?" And he says, "Yeah." So my wife takes the picture, and he said, "Are you on Instagram?" My wife said, "Steven is." He goes, "Can you send it to me?"
No, his phone.
His phone. Yeah. He goes, I'll need. My wife said, "I'll need to give you my phone number." He said, "Sure." So he's getting his phone number. My wife's acting real funny. She's like, hey, look, this young guy's giving me his number. And I started laughing. He said, "You're old enough to be his mother." And then he said, I said, "How old are you?" And he said, 20 years old. And we started laughing. He was so excited, Mike. called my wife. He texted my wife, "Thank you for sending me the picture."
Mhm.
And his name was Kendall Simmons. We'll never forget.
I think he's with
Kendall
the Giants.
Simmons.
I think he signed with the Giants.
He just signed with the Giants. Steven's
think so.
following him now.
It's good. That's what happened.
Yeah, well,
You
he's a
know?
great guy. Great guy. Really nice kid.
You want the great guys to do well. You know, you
Yes.
really do.
They were so, and it was funny. He got to throw a ball down to Mike Lieberthal. Mike
man.
Lieberthal. Jesus Christ. Excuse me. He threw the catcher.
Who?
JT Romuto.
JT Romuto, yeah.
Sorry, he threw the ball to him.
Former
This guy-
catcher.
One of the backup catchers takes it to him, and Steven, I said, "Can you get signed for my son?" He goes, "What's his name?" I said, "Steve." He writes it down. He goes, the catcher, we sell the other guy. "You sign it too." He goes, "Oh, that's going to devalue the ball." I said, "We ain't going to sell it." I said, "We're not selling it. We're keeping it. Don't worry."
I love it. Those are the great stories too. You know, those are. That's why we love sports. To me, as much as the plays on the field and the outcomes of games, sports is about the stories. And there's some great stories in sports. Some absolutely fantastic stories. And that's why I got into it. You know.
Not to cut you off, Mike, but one of the things I told Steven about your career that I knew about was you started doing the U.S. Open tennis. I'm not a big tennis fan, but I was watching it one day and you were doing the reporting, so it made me, more watch it a little bit more. So when did that start with the U.S. Open tennis?
That started in 1991. I did 18 U.S. Opens, and that really began. I started doing USA Network back in the day, had a program called Tuesday Night Fights. And I did some stories for Tuesday Night Fights. And then they were one of the networks that put on coverage of the World League. Remember the World League of American Football?
Yes.
And it was short-lived, maybe 2-3 seasons. It was sponsored by the NFL in part. And there were a couple of teams in Europe, and there were teams all around the country, really, but it never did well. They had the helmet cameras back in the day.
Yeah.
Called it Helmet Cam. So I started doing that for them, and that was fun, doing sidelines with Brad Nessler and Boomer Esiason. Dan Marino was really cool. And then that led to USA Network had the U.S. Open coverage and had it for a long, long time. And so in 1991, they hired me to do sidelines and roaming the grounds, and it was great. So I did that for 18 years, and that was one of the highlights of my career. Really was wonderful.
Awesome.
Being in New York every fall.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I knew you from around that area, and I thought that was great. I thought that's what your hookup was. That's really cool.
It was awesome. Really, it was like, what it was like, Steve. It was like kind of like a mini Olympics every year, in that you had athletes, albeit in the same sport, but they would congregate once a year for 2 weeks, and they would settle it all and decide a champion. And the fact that it was in the United States and in New York, it was great. And to meet people from all corners of the earth coming to New York every year, it was the experience of a lifetime. And to do it for 1 year, let alone 18, was really special.
That's awesome.
It was great.
Steven's other favorite thing is what radio station do you love listening to, Steve?
WIP.
Right. And remember Mike was on that?
Yeah.
So let's hear, tell all Steven's followers when you started and when you stopped with WIP.
I started in September of 2011. The Mike and Ike show right after Labor Day of 2011, and I had 5 great years with Ike Reese. It was awesome. And radio, sports talk radio is a different animal, let me tell you. And you're taking phone calls all the time. You have to have an opinion. It was great working with Ike, working with Eric Golden, and all the folks at WIP. Certainly Angelo was always great to me. And it's an intense time. It really is. And the people there who do it and do it well, you got to have an opinion, you got to have passion. And it really was a blast. It really was a blast. At the end of the time, it got to be a little bit much, because when we went, we initially were 3 hours, and that was really great. Once we went to 4 hours, It really, and then where I, could have an hour to myself to get a haircut or run an errand or whatever, because I'm in there from 7:45 in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning until we're off the air. We were off the air at 1, and then when we went to 2, it was just too much. And then I would go right to then Sportsnet, now NBC Sports Philadelphia, and it got to be a little bit heavy. So but it was a great time in my life. Still friends with everybody there.
That's what I said to Steven. I remember when the whole time, and I said, man, this guy's a machine. He wakes up and he goes there, and then he goes to you're on TV at night. You remember because you did the Daily News Live show?
Yep.
Oh my God.
Daily News Live, and that went into pregame and then postgame,
Right.
and
you're still doing postgame.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. So I got a little breather now till Philly starts, so I get to watch the Sixers and the Flyers, and I think I'm excited to see the Sixers and the Flyers certainly, but the Sixers being in season, I think they got a chance to do some things, and I know they were saying some things on WIP today, saying that they're not there yet, and they might not be, and they haven't played the real tough opponents yet, but I think once they do, they're going to come out favorably. I love the way Shake Milton looks. I love the way the rookie Tyrese Maxey looks, and I love Tobias Harris. Obviously, it goes Embiid and Simmons goes without saying that they're going to be there, and then Seth Curry, this 3-point, he's a terror from the 3-point line.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Sixers are going to be good.
So, Mike, you piqued our interest with your saying your wife was from Havertown. Could you tell us a little bit about your wife and your family?
Yeah. My wife was from Havertown, went to Haverford High School, and then she went to Temple. She was a competitive figure skater. And you heard of Dorothy Hamill, not her. And she was singles, and then she was pairs. And then eventually she left the sport, and she went to Temple University, got her degree at Temple. Let me just take a little glass of water here. And then so we've been married, going on 29 years. Holy smokes. Got married September 12th, 1992. How about that? And 29 years. Feels like 29 minutes under the water. Oh, no, just kidding. And then I say that all the time. Ben Davis told me that joke, and I actually told it. We were doing something for our charity, and Ben's looking at me from the audience, and he's standing next to Ellen, my wife, and I start to tell the joke, and he had just told it to me either the day before or that day, and he's like, no, and I told it, and oh man, it was not good, but it was just a joke. So then my daughter Emily, she was born in Boston, and she went to Syracuse like her dad and like her grandmother and her grandfather. How about that? Talk about 3 generations of orange people. And so she is getting her master's at Villanova, and she in political science. Thinks she's going to go to law school. My son Matthew, he is a junior at the University of Pennsylvania, and studying urban studies, and he's looking at law school. Says he wants to go to law school after school, and that's it. Oh, and then Raven is our dog. She's Raven is going to be 16, I think.
Wow. It's our dog's good, right up there with him, right, Steve?
I don't know if I have any. How old's your dog?
Maggie, she'll be 14 weeks. We figured out 14 or 13. I guess she's up there. She's she's getting a little hard to walk around sometimes. She has arthritis, and great dog though. Great dog.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to so then, and we got another dog, and his name is here's Raven. That's can you see that?
Oh God, I love it. Yes.
Emily, Raven's the little one with the black hair, just to make sure you. And then wait, and then we got another dog, because Emily's boyfriend came to us right before he went to Syracuse too, and said, "Hey, can I get Emily a dog for graduation?" And so, and that was so. that's wait, can you, I don't know if you can see that. There, that's Ben.
Hey, oh God, is that a beagle?
Yeah. So
Oh, we had a beagle. We lost him,
Mhm.
unfortunately. He had to be put
Yeah.
down young.
He- you ready
I
for
love
this?
that
Steve?
dog.
He's a beagle poodle mix. I know that's a
Ah.
wild one. Beagle poodle mix, and
Does he
Raven's a
bark?
big
Does he
guy.
bark like a wait? Does he bark like a poodle or a beagle?
He barks, unfortunately, like a beagle.
Yes,
Because
they're. Oh.
I would rather. I mean, his bark when he gets going is like a whale, and
Yeah.
he'll have like a second
I-
level to it where he'll like it's a pretty throaty bark, and then but then if he sees a deer or a rabbit or a squirrel, then it gets a
Yes, yeah.
nuts.
Joe Conklin. That's why he used to always laugh when he did his horns. I said that one horn always sounded like my dog Sam.
Yeah,
He would when he got in there was barking, man. That is so funny. So, what was your wife's maiden name?
Altschuler,
Altschuler. Okay.
Altschuler,
And she
Altschuler,
went to
Haverford
Havertown.
High School,
Where'd
and
she
her
go?
mom Judy, my mother-in-law, taught there, and
I'm sorry. Where was it? Havertown High School.
Haverford High School.
Haverford High School. Oh, okay. Yes, I know it well. Right.
Boards. And where'd you grow up?
North Philadelphia, Kensington. I went to Northeast Catholic High School.
Yes.
Stephen went to Cardinal Doherty through a
Mhm.
special program.
Yeah.
And I had another son and went to Doherty, and my daughter, I have another son that went to Doherty, and then my daughter went to Little Flower. She's a registered nurse.
Mhm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That's
she's
awesome.
great. And my son works for my other son worked for Progressive Insurance. Stephen was helping out at a batting cage, and he was a little mad at our political people because they shut the batting cages down until further notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
tough.
once get back up and running, a good friend of his has a batting cage, and Stephen volunteers and helps out around and meets some people, and we get some free batting cages out of
And
it and
then
stuff like that.
coach too.
And he helps coach
Holy Family's women's
Holy
soccer
Family's women's soccer team. He's a volunteer assistant.
team. 8 years.
Wow. This would have been his ninth season. He says it's going to be his ninth season because they're going to hopefully start in the spring.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, Steven's been helping out at Holy Family Women's Soccer. And that's how he makes a lot of his connections on Instagram and stuff. And
Carly Lloyd,
he interviewed her.
Lloyd, nice.
Yeah, that was one of his first ones, and that was
I met her in
biggest,
person.
biggest stars. That's why I told Steven when you responded, I said, well, a lot of people around here know, but he's got fans all over the country. Tell him, Steven.
Yeah.
He interviewed John Madden's grandson this year.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he's a senior in high school out there. He was recruited by Penn State
In California?
Yeah, he's from Oakland. They stayed in the Oakland area, suburbs, and he was a great interview. We asked him if you go to Steven's YouTube page, he's on there, and we asked him about. Of course, Steven loves Madden, NFL, Madden, and he said, did you get free, early stuff? He said, oh, every year I get free stuff. He said this year, because he's a senior in high school, they asked him to come sit in on the when they were rolling out, before they rolled everything out, to see how he liked it, and he would play. He played the games and stuff. He said it was great. So then I said, Steve, his grandfather was a great announcer besides being a Hall of Fame coach. So I said to the kid, I said, did you ever get a chance to go on to Monday Night Football? And the kid says, yeah. And he goes, it was great. He said, me and my dad would sit there in the back, and he said, nobody knew we were there. And he goes, it was unbelievable. And I always loved John Madden, and his grandson, wonderful kid. And we wished him all the luck in the world. So we got all the contacts, and we told them all we're going to get back to them next year when hopefully pandemic's over and we can
yeah, for sure. Especially with Carly Lloyd.
Carly Lloyd, when the World Cup starts back up, she promised Steven to come back on, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And Carly Lloyd's an amazing person, and she's been great to us. We have a family charity, and she's been a great contributor and really been helpful.
Tell Steven's followers who your charity is, Mike. That's another thing we try to promote on this little show of ours.
Hang on one second. Let me
get the information, because one of the things that we try to tell people, Steven tries to reach out to as many friends of his as he can, and he's got a lot of followers. Like I said, he met through Instagram and Facebook. Some of these people are wonderful to him, and we look out and we tell them all, look, give us your information. We'll put it out there. He belongs to a couple organizations himself, organization called AHA, athletes help, athletes helping athletes.
Yeah.
So we try to promote them. And there's another guy that started an organization that Steven was in at 5 years old called the Fox Chase Champions up in the Northeast section.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
it's a
we
beautiful
try
thing.
to promote, people donating to these causes because they're great causes and great people. A lot of people are sick and what have you, but other people just need help and they just need people to, reach out and touch them and be with them.
Yep, you're right. It's friendship, it's camaraderie, it's a human touch.
Yeah.
Literally, and it's not figuratively, and it's a beautiful thing. It's so great that you're doing that. But I was so looking forward to coming on, being on the Legend Show. You know what I'm saying? And I like the way you're doing it. I'm actually looking at it. The reason I've been looking down, I've been looking at it on I got it on the old Facebook right here. Uh-huh. You know what I'm saying?
It's his own little studio. He has an on air sign.
It's got for Christmas.
He got this for Christmas.
You got what? I'm sorry.
He's got an on air sign. I just got it all took together today. He got an on air sign from one of his Secret Santa gifts.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's
Mommy, Daddy got.
Oh, I thought. Oh, it's we got you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I always get confused. Sorry, Steve. I don't know who buys what.
You're both amazing to do this, and Steve Senior, what a dad you are, my friend.
Oh, well, thank you. But please give us your charity information, Mike. We want to promote it. Please.
It's called the Healing Hearts. It's the Barkann Family Healing Hearts Foundation, and it's barkshearts.com or .org or familyhealinghearts.org or the Barkann Foundation.org is probably the easiest way, the Barkann Foundation. And we find people through social workers who have had catastrophic moments in their lives, loss of a loved one. In one case, a Marine from West Philadelphia had her house completely cave in, just crashed in. And we gave her some serious money so she could stay at other places. We do something called Holiday Hearts at Christmas time, where we give kids, families, Santa sacks and gift cards, and just try to ease the burden of going through that time when you've lost a loved one or you're going through a physical malady yourself. And it's tough. It's tough for all of us out there. And so we partner up and Mike Barnes, who is our executive director, he does a great job. If you don't follow him, you should follow him on Facebook, Mike Barnes. And he does an incredible job at making sure everybody is served. And it's just a way of giving back to a community that's just been so great to us. And we're so blessed to be in the midst of it. And if there's anything that we can do to help people who are underserved and who have been through just a catastrophic circumstance, that we love to try to do it. So, and that's really what it's about. When we started it up, I said I wanted to make sure that the money raised stayed in the community. And I wanted to make sure that we were going to be able to see the people that we were helping. They weren't going to just be nameless, faceless people. And some of them have gotten back on their feet, found their way, and they paid it forward, and they help other people, or they come and they contribute themselves at our events. And it's great. We hope we get to have our big events, our golf tournament, our golf outing, and we hope we get to have it. We had to postpone it, if not cancel it, last year because of COVID. It was slated for May, and then it was going to be at French Creek, which is in Elverson, PA. It's a beautiful golf course, and then it was postponed, and then we were going to have it in October, and that didn't work out, and we just didn't want people to have to worry about, some people wear masks, everybody should wear a mask, but there's a lot of people who don't wear masks, and we didn't want to put those two groups together, make anybody uncomfortable. And so we figure we're just gonna wait until everybody can get together as they like. So, and hopefully that'll be, I hope it's in June, but I'm sure we're gonna have to make a decision before too long. So we've been pushing it. We've been kind of kicking the can down the street, So we'll see.
Yeah, he's unfortunately Steven had a lot of friends of his that we go to golf outings, and a couple people we know, they do the same kind of thing you do through their charities. A couple friends of ours lost a daughter, and they have a charity where they raise money, and they do the same thing like you do, but they do it to the families who are going through it with one of their kids or wife or husband who passed, and then they pay it forward, and they hand these people money, and it's like that. I don't want money, but people say, look, they can't buy you happiness, but it sure does help when you need to get away on a vacation that you couldn't afford to go, and someone hands you $5,000 or $10,000, and you can take a trip with your family and just get away from the normality of your life, and the depressing thing, the thing that's bringing you down. So it's really nice, because I'd asked Steven, I said, I know that he's very, does charities and stuff, and we wanted to get it out there for you. And, it's great that you did this for Steven, but, I always tell everybody, you're my witness. I didn't know Michael Barkann before this, and Steven did this all on his own. He looks out for everybody and gets everybody to get him an email and signs them up. Right, Stevie boy?
Great job, Steve.
What do you got to say, Mr.
You must have
Barkann?
quite an address book, Steve. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, you don't have them anymore. He has them all on his how many followers you got on Facebook? Tell him.
I don't even know.
Over 1,000?
Yeah.
Yes. He's got over 1,000 on Facebook.
Pretty good.
He's doing great. Well, Michael,
One more question.
oh, sure. I'm sorry.
You're good.
How
Right on, baby.
do you have any tips for anybody who's like trying to get into broadcasting?
Yeah, this is really important. Learn to write well. And in broadcasting, you write for what sounds good. You know what I mean? Like we're talking now, what sounds good.
Yeah.
But when you're reading, a newspaper or on a website, if you miss something, you can go back. What was that they wrote? Oh yeah, I can go back to it. But you can't do that when you're on the radio or when you're on TV. You can't do that. And so you have to write in a more direct and simpler form. But to be able to do that, you need to know the basics of writing. So I always tell kids, it's okay if you don't major in broadcast journalism, or it's okay if you don't major in radio, television, communications. As long as you can, when you get out of school, you know how to communicate your thoughts in print more than adequately. That's the first thing, really important. So learn to write well. And I can't tell you, unfortunately, the number of kids I see coming out of school and they don't. And you have to be able to, you should be able to. And it's not easy all the time, but you got to dedicate yourself to it, because that's what we do, to communicate. So that would be my one thing. Write well.
How about the other question you like to ask everybody else? If you gotta have dinner.
If you could have dinner with like 3 people in sports, who would they be and why?
Charles Barkley, just for the fun, right? Jackie Robinson, across the color barrier. I want to know what that 1947 must have been unbelievable, and not in a good way. Who else? Tom Seaver just passed away. He was a boyhood hero of mine.
Did you see the special?
Off the top of my head. Actually, you know what? I might go with Muhammad Ali too.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
There was a great special on the MLB network recently about the 6 guys that passed away this year that are all Hall of Famers.
Oh, I know.
It was great. And a
Bob
great
Gibson,
story. Yeah.
Tom Seaver, and the other 4, the knuckleballer, Necro, Phil Necro.
The guy from Al Kaline.
Al Kaline. Yeah. They're playing upstairs right now. They're playing upstairs. Man, what a game. Like,
oh yeah, that's right. We're missing the Sixers game. That's where it said, all right, well, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. Thank you very much, Mr. Barkann.
My pleasure. It is my pleasure. Steve, you need anything, let me know.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got it. Have a great night. Talk
Thank
to you
very
soon.
much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You got it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. That was pretty good. We double teamed them there, huh?
Mhm.
Pretty good. Pretty